Pastor Greg Mitchell. So let's give him all the time he needs and welcome him as he comes. Amen.
Thank you very much. I have been over 38 years in the ministry. But alas, I live in America and we do not have long service leave. But I just remembered I began in Australia, so Pastor Elliot, can you start? Truth be told is I owe you. You do not owe me. Yeah, great privilege of ministry. Thank God. Turn in your Bibles to the book of Ephesians, chapter 6. In the American Civil War, Confederate Lieutenant General Thomas Stonewall Jackson was returning with some of his men. Under cover of night, he had gone out on an intelligence gathering operation. As he came back into camp, some of his own troops misidentified him as an enemy scout team, so they opened fire, wounding Jackson. Because of that, it got infected and he died of his wounds 8 days later. Stonewall Jackson, it was considered he was one of the best Confederate generals, and the fact that he was killed, many people feel that altered the course of the war, and the Confederates, of course, lost. Here's the point. If you want to win, you have to make sure you're fighting the right people. You will fight. Make sure you're fighting the right people. The text that we're going to read is a familiar one. Paul has to remind believers that we do not wrestle against flesh and blood. If you want to survive in salvation, you want to survive in the ministry, you have to wrestle the right enemy. And I want to preach about right wrestling. Ephesians 6, 10 through 13. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Right wrestling. Let's begin. I want to talk about the strategies of hell. There is a reality of war that every person is going to have to face here. We have an enemy of our souls who opposes us and seeks to destroy us. John 10:10, the thief comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. In the book of Revelations, you get this image coming out of the pit is Apollyon, whose name is the destroyer. He wants to destroy your purpose in God. He wants to destroy you, and he wants to destroy your church. In our text, it uses the word wrestle. Verse 12, we do not wrestle against flesh and blood. This is not high school wrestling. This is not TV wrestling with a cape and their chonies on the outside. That is not what we're talking about. This kind of wrestling was extremely violent. There were literally no rules when you got into this kind of wrestling match back in ancient culture. It was a fight literally to the death, absolutely no rules. And in our text, he speaks about, King James, New King James calls it the wiles of the devil. Verse 11, put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. That word wiles means strategies. The devil moves against you, against your church, strategically. The word wiles literally means with a road, to gain entrance. So in other words, the devil strategizes what is the best way to get into people's minds, to get into their hearts, to get into their churches in order to do damage. One major strategy that the devil uses, and this is no doubt why Paul references this, the major strategy of hell involves using people. to carry out his strategies. How does the devil gain entrance into your mind? People. How does he get into your heart? People. How does he get into your church? People. We see this in the Bible. David, his brother Eliab, was used to discourage him. Joseph, it was the envy of his brothers that was used to try and destroy him. David, again, the rudeness of a man named Nabal and how he treated him was used to try to get David to overreact and make bad decisions that would affect his destiny. No doubt, I doubt there's anybody here that you have had the devil appear to you personally. In fact, probably very few of you have literally seen demons, although some have. But I guarantee every person here, you have had people in your life that have been used by hell. Do not look at the person next to you. There's a broad range of ways that this occurs. The devil uses people. Number one, there are people who say things that are unintentionally offensive. People will say things. They hurt. It rubs you the wrong way. Why are they doing that? Because they're young, because their personality is abrasive. They're not doing it because they hate you. They didn't wake up in the morning thinking, how can I hurt them? They just don't think. And that can come in many ways. Some of you, you're young pastors, and this is your vexation. You're slugging it out. You're trying your best to do, as Pastor Glenn said, you're trying to say something that is relevant and from heaven. And having spent months and months and months laboring every service, you have one evangelist in, or a guy come in for a special service, and everybody goes, oh, thank God we had him. Wow, God really spoke to me. And you're like, what am I, chopped liver? Come on. Number two, there are people who are in pain from their past, and they will cause you problems. People who have been rejected, people who have been violated, they are in pain on the inside. Let me tell you something about human nature. When people feel helpless to fight a person who rejected them or hurt them, they wind up fighting with everyone. There's someone in their youth, someone in the past who did them wrong, and it's a helpless feeling. I can't get back at them. So those people, everywhere they go, they're walking conflicts. Pastor told me this story. He said he had a young man in his church always getting in fights with people, sat down to try to talk to him about this one time, started shouting at the pastor, jumped up, stormed off, and the pastor said, I was about to go after him and stop him, and he said, God spoke to me, no, don't go after him. He's not talking to you, he's talking to his Father. You have to recognize that. Thirdly, there are people that are wrestling with their own problems. In the Prescott Church, we stand at the entrance, the main entrance. We greet people coming in, and, I like babies. Babies are cute. They come in, and I like to fuss over people's children. But you know what happens? There'll be a baby, and I'm like, Howie, but the baby like, yeah. And what is it that the mother or father invariably say? He's just tired. I said, that is awesome. Lisa, take note of that. Imagine if I could say anything that I want to, and then Lisa could just say, he's tired. But there's a truth you have to recognize. You're going to come in contact with people that are stressed, overwhelmed, terrified about their own lives or their own future, their own family. All that is bubbling on the inside. So what do? They snap at you. They shoot their mouths off because of the stress and the fear inside of you. Listen, if I could help you, pastors here, if I could help you, many of you, don't take everything personal in life. Even though the reaction is coming at you, listen, they're not actually reacting to you. It's not about you. It's about what's going on in life. But the devil will use people who are wrestling with their own problems. Then there are people who are wrestling with God. When people are disobedient to God, when they are fighting with God, they invariably will fight with other people. And one they will fight with more than anybody else is the pastor. They know what they should be doing. Asa, the Bible says this king, he disobeyed God. And when the prophet challenged him, he had him thrown in prison. But Asa was actually angry at God. He had been disobedient against God and was convicted about it. So he takes it out on the prophet, or we could say he took it out on the pastor. Fifth category is people who have been demonically affected by others. If you have ever experienced rebellion, you know what I'm talking about. When there is rebellion and evil speaking in the camp, you have the ringleaders, but everyone they talk to, rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. It's a demon spirit. I've gone through splits. I could see people come and you can see the cloud on their mind. They're not thinking straight. They have been affected. Now, they're going to have to judge. They're going to have to deal with that in time. But some of the people who are demonically affected are not the actual rebels. They're not the ringleaders. They're not the one trying to get rid of the pastor. They're demonically affected. Those people will not be reacting as you want them to react, but they need help. They need deliverance. I teach pastors, if you're going through rebellion, lay hands on people. Make up a reason so you can pray, because you can lift that demon off their mind. The sixth category is there are people, they are genuinely from hell, and they need to be dealt with, okay? These people sometimes need to be confronted. They may need limits put on them. You are not going to speak to new converts, whatever it might be. Ultimately, some of these people, the only answer, they must be removed. Okay. I just gave you 6 categories. The last one of people who are from hell is the smallest category of people you will ever deal with. The problem with many pastors is they think all of them are from hell. Anyone who doesn't respond correctly, anyone who is rude, anyone who snaps, they're from hell, and they need to be taken care of. It's a big problem when you make the smallest problem the largest. Okay, having laid that foundation, now let's get into our text. Right wrestling is what I want to talk about. Our text gives a very important lesson. Your real battle, in the give and take of life, you're going to come up against people who are affecting you, irritating you, offending you, many different things. Paul writes in our text, he says, our real battle is not with people. People are the ones offending. People are the ones irritating. People are the ones disappointing, but they're not the ones you're fighting with. Verse 12, we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Paul had to write these words because he understood our tendency is to allow people to consume us. They offended, they irritated, they didn't respond correctly. He knows what happens. We become consumed with that. The emotion that can be produced by people, the effect they're having on you can blind you to the supernatural reality that is actually not in the person, it's behind them. It's higher than them. Verse 12 speaks about the rulers of the darkness. The devil works in the dark. He hides his attacks. I have never gotten a call from the devil before Sunday morning service. Greg, this morning I'm going to cause somebody to offend you. Don't worry, it's me. I'm just messing with your head. Thanks for the warning. That has never happened. He works in darkness. So the problem is, Paul is writing this because we misinterpret. When people are the ones bringing the offense, the irritation, whatever it is, we misinterpret who the enemy is, and like Stonewall Jackson's own men, our answer is open fire. Think about times when you are very likely to misinterpret your problem. Number one, you will misinterpret when the problem is within you. Very simple statement I can make to you in life, and that is broken things don't work well. The problem is when we have been broken in life, on the inside, when we have been broken emotionally, when our worth has been broken by rejection, by violations in life, a rejected, violated person interprets. Now, in the give and take of life of people who are being rude because they're stressed, people who are demonically affected, fill in the blank, all the things that I just said, you interpret everything as rejection. You interpret everything as violation. A second marriage is harder than the first one. And part of the doesn't mean you can't have a happy second marriage, but part of the problem is people who get married in their second marriage, they're carrying the past into the present relationship. They're fighting like cats and dogs, but in actual fact, they're fighting with their ex-husband. They don't live with him anymore. The new guy, he's trying to do best he can. They're fighting with their ex-wife. I'm just giving that as an illustration. Broken things don't work well. Pastors, this is what I urge disciples before you go. If you're in the ministry, pastors need to be healed from past violations and betrayals. Because if there are unhealed wounds within you, you know what you're going to do? In the offenses of life, you are going to open fire. You are going to go to war. This is what happened to David. Here there's an offense. His family have rejected him, not seen his worth. Saul is attacking him. All this is going on. Now he's on the run. And a man who, his name means fool, Nabal. His wife said, why would you be offended? His name is fool. That was clue number one. Hi, what's your name? Fool? I don't think wisdom is coming from you. So Mr. Fool speaks and acts foolishly, but David has unhealed wounds. And what is his answer? Strap on your swords, because by tonight there will be no one living. For some of you say, that's a normal Sunday. What's You have to be healed from your rejection issues. Rejection affects how you view people. Rejected people get easily intimidated. There are some ministries of torment because you're intimidated. You've got somebody in church that they have confidence, and they have an opinion, and everything throws you over the edge. You can't live that way. You got to get healed. Rejected people get easily offended. What did you mean by that? I said hello. I know know why you said that. I know why you did that. You're interpreting. Rejection makes people miserable because everything in life has a hidden meaning and an interpretation. Maybe they're tired. Second time you will misinterpret your problems is when the problem is actually simply you are unrealistic. Listen, you can work hard, be nice to people, kiss babies, shake hands. It is unrealistic if you think everybody in life is going to be your biggest fan. Okay, they're just not. There are some people, Pastor Mitch used to depress us with percentages. I won't give you percentages. He said in every church there are people who love the pastor, there are people who would like to get rid of the pastor, and there are people who don't really care who the pastor is. That's just life. You have to understand that. It's unrealistic. Some of you, someone who is not nice sends you over the edge. I came and they weren't very nice today. You want to go to war because, come on, are you always nice? Are you always nice? Are you always like on top of your game, like, hello? You ever just wake up crabby? What? So why is it everybody else has to be nice at all times, but you give a pass on yourself? That's unrealistic. It's unrealistic if you think people will never say anything foolish. And so some people, that's the problem. You'll misinterpret when the problem is a seasonal assault. You need to learn something about the devil. The devil is a created being, which means he is limited. We read in the Bible about war in heaven, and 1/3 of the angels were cast down. The devil can never make more demons. Okay? Population increases. He has all the demons he'll ever have. He can't make more. Nor is he God. He cannot be everywhere at once at the same time. So what happens to us in life, at times we feel things. We feel oppression. We just feel a funkiness in us, at home, in church, or whatever. It's just because the devil's in the area. Churches come under seasonal assaults. There are many problems going on in the church at the same time. Many people doing foolish things at the same time. There's at times you will discover this. Recognize that there's oppression. There's interrupted sleep. There's strange sickness. Where did this come from? The doctor says, I have no idea. Shifting sickness. It was in my knee. Now it's in my shoulder. It's my head. It moved from mom to dad to the kids to the cat and back around again. It just goes round and round and round. Shifting sickness. Strings of reversals financially. People in the church or actually in the church. Resistance in fruitfulness. Loss of converts. Unusual marriage conflict, resistance in the altar calls. The devil's in the area. It's seasonal. You would be foolish in a seasonal assault to put undue interpretations on the looks on people's faces. That's not helpful. You got to recognize sometimes the devil's in the area. Fight back. He'll move on and torment somebody else. Okay, that's the way life works. Very crucial, married people, pastors and wives, listen to me. This is very true in marriage. There is such thing as a spirit of conflict. Okay, now, some of you fight like cats and dogs all the time. Ignore everything I'm going to say right now. But there are people you generally have a good relationship. You occasionally fight. But there are times when for no reason you are at each other's throats, like Job's wife, curse God and die. It was not that she was the wickedest wife who has ever lived. The devil was in the area. There was something demonic, and you must have the wisdom to recognize when that's a spirit. They were under attack. The fourth time when you will misinterpret is when the problem is simply that a person is inspired of hell or by hell, whether that is immorality or rebellion. Immorality must be confronted and dealt with. Rebellion must be confronted and dealt with. They may need to be removed. Okay, here is the point. I want to make one simple point. Okay, I said sometimes it's in you, sometimes the problem is you're unrealistic, sometimes it's seasonal. I said all the different categories. The important thing to know is that the effect you feel from an immoral or rebellious person and a person who is simply stressed or someone who is unwise, they feel the same. You have to know this. That is why some of you interpret, I feel that. This person looked at me funny. Strap on your swords, they must die. It feels the same as the guy you need to strap your sword on and really deal with, but it's not. That is why you have to pray for wisdom. Simple question would be, God, do they need to die or not? Paul says you are wrestling against, verse 12, the rulers of the darkness. If you're not seeing things correctly, you're going to wind up coming to wrong conclusions. One of the favorite strategies of hell is he attacks, and what he wants you to do is personalize it. First time I came up against wicked rebellion, a man spoke, a cloud came on my mind, and I called my father for the first time. I had never thought of quitting the ministry, and it made total sense. Clearly, you're going to have to get somebody else here. I'm not qualified. I shouldn't be pastoring, and so you got to get. And my dad started yelling at me. He said, "Don't you get it, Greg? It's witchcraft." So I was personalizing. The problem is me when it was from hell. You have to interpret things correctly, see it correctly. And if you're not seeing things correctly, you're going to wind up fighting with the wrong people. Can I ask you a simple question? Who consumes your mind? There are pastors and pastors' wives. You didn't sleep well last night because of a person. You're tossing and turning and their face is in your mind. Some dumb word they said. It's going round and round and round and round. Some of you couldn't pray well this morning. You're getting down to do kingdom business and then all you can think of is they said. Can't hear preaching. Keeping you. You are wrestling against supernatural powers. 26 U.S. diplomatic workers in Cuba and China started reporting symptoms which included brain injuries, hearing loss, cognitive problems, difficulty of balance, problems with vision, and problems with hearing. It was suspected that foreign powers may have been aiming microwaves or sonic weapons at them. Most reported hearing high-pitched sounds over some time. Think about that. They're being strategically targeted, something that they can't even see. Some kind of microwave, some kind of sonic wave is coming and it's altering things inside. That is why Paul says we're not wrestling against flesh and blood. Let's talk finally about spiritual survival. How do we survive spiritually in these battles? Number one, Paul says you have to recognize. The reason why Paul wrote these words is he wanted believers to recognize what was happening to them so they can respond correctly. Recognition might be personal. You may need to recognize yourself. Is the problem that this person is so evil, or is the actual problem that There's something broken in you. Is it your issues that are magnifying, making everything worse? I say to every person here who has been violated and rejected, I say to every pastor and pastor's wife, listen, ministry has offenses. You must forgive. You cannot hold on. It does not make sense. I know of pastors' wives who don't want to be in church because they're actually angry and they're bitter. You can't live that way. They're pastors, they're people. It was 3 churches ago. They're still affecting you in your current ministry. One little thing happens in here. Remember, after going through wicked rebellion, moved on, I was like 2 ministries later, had someone said something that was mildly rebellious, and I remember I felt sick inside. I just remember that feeling. I felt sick to my stomach, and then my teeth are going like, I needed to visit the dentist afterwards. So this is not, I can't live like this. So this current problem, it was simple. I dealt with it, but I'm still affected by problem years ago. I got to let it go. God needs to help me. You must forgive. Some of you need healing. You literally need a deliverance. You will never have successful human relationships on any level if a demon spirit can cause you to misinterpret at all times. Your life is a misery. You need healing. You need to cast out that lying demon of rejection. Ask God to heal you from your pain. It may be that you need to recognize the higher battle. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood, against principalities and powers. You have to recognize when the effect, the pain, the irritation, the anger is coming. You know what? My real battle is not with this rude person, that person who didn't appreciate. My real battle is against the supernatural powers of hell. Yes, the person could have been nicer, and yeah, they shouldn't have said that. But what's really happening is that person is being used by hell. I didn't say they are from hell. They're being used by hell. That's not the same thing. And the devil's using that to affect me. You have to have this. You're going to minister to people. You will have people who are making bad decisions in your church. That not every bad thing that happens in the church is a vote on your worth. You can't live like that. People are not living for God. It's because of me. People backslid. It's because of me. Not everything is you. There's a spirit behind it, and that's why Paul writes this. I say again, one of the things I want you to understand out of this sermon is that real problems that must be dealt with and problems that simply come from spiritual assault feel the same. They feel the same, even though they're not. That is why you have to pray, God, give me the wisdom to know the difference between something that's real and something that's just being used by hell. Second thing, if you want to survive, you have to resist. Verse 12. We do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Paul says it's a spiritual battle. Spiritual battles can only be won by prayer. Ephesians 6:18, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, being watchful to this end with all perseverance and supplication for all the saints. When people hurt you, irritate you, make you angry, reject you, you need to take it to God first. Some of your instinct is to fight. They looked at me. Come here. What did you mean? That's not what you do. First, he says, praying. You need to talk to God about this so that you can see clearly. Have you ever done that? Have you ever had something, this bothers you so much, like, that's it, I can't stand this anymore, and then you went and started praying for that person? God, I think that they need to die. What do you think, God? And when you start to pray, it's like, you know what? I don't think I need to do anything about that. It might just be them. Listen, let me give you a little tip. Some people who have spent a lifetime and they lack pleasing personality, which means they're obnoxious and they're rude, it's very unlikely that they're going to wake up with a pleasant disposition one morning. Okay? That doesn't mean they need to burn in hell. There are some people you just gotta, it's the way they are. It's like getting upset at a donkey because he's a donkey. There are donkey people in life, you know. We call them jackasses. That's what they are. Sometimes there are people like, that guy bugged, and then I think to myself, yep, that's all right. God, that man needs help. I'm going to pray for him. In prayer, sometimes there is resistance. There's negative words that I hear. I approach that first spiritually. I pray for people. They're fighting with God. They're fighting with themselves. They're fighting with me. They're fighting with everybody else. God, they're hurting. They're wrestling with you. They're affected by a rebellious person. God, help them. The only answer cannot be get rid of everyone. I pray for people. I know there's a struggle. People that are rude to me, I don't automatically get in their face. You know what I do? Is I go when no one's there. I go to the seat they sit on. I lay hands on it. I say, God, I need you to help them. They're irritating me, but I don't want to take action simply because I'm upset. God, I'm asking you to help them, deliver them, whatever it might be. I pray for people. I pray against people. There are people that they are absolutely, there's a difficulty and depends on their level of influence. It's not as simple as one meeting and you're out. So those people, I will go and I will deliberately pray, God, I would rather that they be healed, but if they're not going to be healed, I need them to be dealt with so they can go without damage. That's what I want. Sometimes it's something I feel, I don't know. I've had spirits be exposed so I can deal with it. But the bottom line, listen, if you're the pastor, pastor means shepherd. Pastor's not a title. When people say Pastor Greg, they're actually saying shepherd. Jesus said in John 10:10, I am the door. That was a shepherd. He would lay down. They didn't have gates. They didn't have metal gates and hinges. They would build a pen or walls of some kind. And there was one part that was open. That's where the sheep got in. And the shepherd would lay down. Shepherd, pastor, it's your job to determine what happens in church. It's your job. So what that means spiritually, yes, if they have to be confronted, do so. But first, I come into the church or I come into prayer meeting and I am telling the devil, I will not allow that spirit to rule here. We are not going to have that spirit of dissension and rebellion. That funky spirit, you're not going to rule here. We rule. We have dominion here. Final step if you're going to survive. Sorry, Rob, I couldn't come up with another R. Believe. Ephesians 6:16, above all, taking the shield of faith with which you will be able to quench the fiery darts of the wicked one. You're going to live or die by what you believe. Some of you here, the problem in trying to do the will of God, pastors' wives, the devil tries to convince you that it's hopeless. You come up against a problem person, and in your mind, I could have had a destiny. I could have had revival. But that guy, those people, it'll never work now. No, he says, take the shield of faith. You're going to live or die by what you believe. You have to believe what God says. Romans 8:37, we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. David was upset at Nabal and was about to commit mass murder. And as I said, some of you, that's a normal Sunday, but this was not normal. 1 Samuel 25:29, even though someone is pursuing you to take your life, the life of my master will be bound securely in the bundle of the living by the Lord your God, but the lives of your enemies he will hurl away as from the pocket of a sling. Listen, a wise woman named Abigail, she says, David, wait. Before you kill everyone, do you understand God is in control? Your life is securely bound up with God. People don't determine your destiny. You need to learn that. This guy, man, I could have, and they're slandering me. Oh heavens, no one in the Bible was ever slandered. How can we possibly grow the church if someone said something mean? People don't ruin your destiny. No human being has the right to determine your future. It is not true. You got to believe God. And God is able to deal with your enemies, your true enemies, not just people who irritate you. I have experienced the entire range of victory over the power of darkness in my ministry thus far. I've prayed because I felt resistance, not knowing where it came from. God exposed people supernaturally. I prayed for people that were problematic and I needed God to move them along without major damage. And suddenly we're leaving the church, left, no fight, no damage. I've had to personally confront people who were hurting the church and move them along, put them out of the church for the greater good. I've prayed for wisdom with people that irritate me, thinking there's no way they'll ever change, and God has done a miracle and they've changed. I prayed for people that were resistant to me personally, and God did a miracle and they changed. I close this story. I had a couple, won't go into all the details for time and YouTube, but nonetheless, I had to make a decision of discipline about their family. And it was painful. It's something that probably can never be fixed. And as a result of that, they were very angry with me. Very angry. They were, to be honest with you, they were very childish. They would come in, shake hands with other pastors, and snub me. I'll tell you, that didn't make me feel warm and fuzzy. They glared at me through services for some amount of time. I want to tell you, that did not make me happy, but I did all that I'm preaching to you. I took it to God in prayer. I said, God, these people were in the church for years. They're hurting. They're hurting about their loved one and the decision they made and the decision I had to make about them. God, I don't believe they're evil. I don't want their spirit. I prayed against that spirit. I'm not going to let that funkiness come on. These people were not starting a website, IHateGregMitchell.com. They were not spreading around their vex and how much they disliked me. It just was personal. And so I prayed and prayed and prayed. And I want to tell you, God did a miracle. There's several events. I won't go into each of them, but something began to shift in their heart. And it was the final straw was they came and announced to me they're moving this town. And so I think they expected for me to rebuke them. How dare you think of leaving Prescott? That is Mecca, don't you know? And I said, I'm very sorry. We're thinking of moving over there. Do you know any churches in that area? And I said, tonight I will bring you a list. And I went through the mailing list and all the churches in the area, I marked them. I said, look, that one is a very tiny church. I don't think that'll fit you. This guy, I hear this guy is mean. I don't know. That's what I hear. I think this one could work for you. That one. Here's a couple of options. And I think they were shocked that I was kind and was willing to help. They went on their trip and they decided that that would be foolish to move, but God did a miracle in them. I want to tell you, these people are my fans now. They like me. They say nice things about me to other people. They shake my hand enthusiastically. Every time I see them and they're nice, number one, I rejoice in God's grace. God, thank you for preserving them. And number two, I say, God, thank you that you kept me from acting on my emotion, because I'd have strapped on my sword and felt very justified. It wasn't necessary for them to die. Do you have that possibility in life? Are you fighting with the wrong people? Are you obsessed? You're making things bigger? Various reasons. Paul says we do not wrestle against flesh and blood. Let's bow our heads, close our eyes all across this place. Thank God, I appreciate your attention. I bring you to a decision